Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm Matt Connarton, and to my right, as always, with his pink paper, is the Honorable Gary S. Hopper.
Matt! Top of the evening to you. Is it top of the evening? What's the top? Why do they call it the top of the morning if it's the beginning of the morning?
I think because...
What's the bottom of the morning? The bottom of the morning is at the end of the morning?
The bottom
like
would be
noon?
the end, I
like
think.
Near noon?
It's like they do in radio. Like they'll say top of the hour.
Right.
And bottom of the hour.
Right. Why is it the bottom and the top?
Well, you start at the top.
At the end.
Well, if you start at the top and then, you just slowly descend into whatever it is you're descending into.
I'm sorry, what were we talking about? So anyway, what did we do today?
Well, I don't know.
I don't either.
I'm dying to hear, though.
You are?
Of course.
That seems kind of drastic reaction to it.
Well, I was speaking metaphorically.
Oh. Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't actually give my life to hear
I've heard people say
this.
they're dying for this or dying for that, but I see them a week later, they're still breathing and vertical, and it seems kind of like maybe they were exaggerating.
It's like when someone says by all means.
Yeah, they don't really mean that.
No,
that'd be stupid.
Right. You have to be practical.
Yeah, by all means have a seat. That means they could like stab you and jump over you and shoot you and get you out of the way.
Exactly.
And then have a seat. And that would be not good.
No.
Well, I mean, it might be okay for them.
Well, the seat they take would be bloodstained. So
That's true.
Even for them, it's not a good deal.
Yeah, it's probably not.
No.
You got to think about these things before you say them. There's a lot of people say a lot of stuff that just doesn't make sense when you actually give it any real thought.
I know.
It's good that we're intellectual, so we can educate the audiences
we can help people not to give it any real thought.
Right.
That's why we're here, really.
That's exactly why we're here.
Yes.
What the heck did I do today?
Oh.
Do you remember what I did today at the legislature?
You took a bunch of notes. I see some handwriting on there.
Infinite. Man, I can't read my own writing.
You should have been a doctor.
I should have.
Then the only people who could read your writing would be pharmacists. It's always mystified me. Well, our guest is here.
How are you today, young man?
Very well, thank you. How are you two?
It's too early to know. We'll let you know about 6:55.
There you go.
we had the brain damage is not a good thing.
No,
it does make life more interesting.
You don't wear a helmet when you ride, do you?
No, I don't wear a helmet. It was actually when when I was little, we didn't wear helmets back then.
No.
I don't see why you need them.
All we had back then was the Schwinn. Remember, there was no. I think there were three. If a kid had a 3-speed bike, boy, he was. We all had the Schwinns with a rusty change it going.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, anytime you had one of those ones that actually switched gears, it never really quite switched it to the correct location anyway.
Yeah.
You spent more time trying to get that cotton picking chain back on the spokes
than
you did for actually riding anywhere. Oh, let's see. Okay, so we did gambling today. There was reconsideration of gambling, and that hit the dumper at 172 to 192, which I was very grateful for. I don't know how you feel about that.
An additional 20 votes from last week's 172 to 172. That's amazing.
Correct. Huh. Yeah. But the odd thing was, and it was my chairwoman proposed indefinite postponement. I think that was the term. You have a lot of political terms up there. Indefinite postponement, which meant that if that passed, any bill that was similar could not even be considered by the House for the rest of the year.
Wow.
Okay? And so she tried that, and it failed, which is odd. Because it sounded like to me that Steve Valancourt and those guys have something in the works where the Senate's going to attach this to something else. It'll, I thought about it afterwards. They'll probably have a bill in the Senate to National, Hug Your Puppy Day.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes, and then they'll attach it to that. So if you vote against it, you're voting against puppies.
Oh yeah. You don't want to do that.
Is that about right?
Well, I've seen those things come down the road before. When I was my 9 years, I was in Washington. I used to see some of the most ridiculous things you could ever see. The reason nothing ever gets done in this nation is that the people who were down there, they get the new ones as they come in. Hey, you sit down over here and listen. You want to keep the money coming in, don't worry. And if let's face it, if it were
You're gonna have to sit a little bit closer to your.
if it were set up the way it was, or I should say, if it were still the way it was originally set up, it was designed for maybe 3-4 months' work. And then you had to get back in and get your crops in and take care of your family and any real issues like a war or something, you'd have to come back and take care of it, deliberate. But these people have made it a living.
Right.
And when you get some of these, I had dealings with Strom Thurmond. And rest his soul, what a character he was. He was unbelievable. If he did not understand the word no.
Yeah.
You couldn't say no to that man.
Huh.
And well, we've made a business decision and we're going to go this way. And he's, no, you can't do that. And we didn't need his permission, but it was just he would make life miserable for us.
Right.
So and when you go in and see these various operations when you go in to see a committee that was supposed to oversee X, Y, or Z, and they're overseeing everything, you know,
Right.
because they're trying to get bigger and bigger.
Sure.
Yeah, we're very powerful, and you could see we'd be dragged up on the hill all the time, and if the cameras weren't there, then you could see that none of the representatives were there. The chairman usually, or the vice chair, and everyone else is just kind of sitting there like, oh, okay. And it's because the minute the cameras show up, bingo, then you can't get near the place. But
Right.
and it's just a lot of.
Yeah, well, I've tuned into like C-SPAN where they have some a congresswoman or congressman up there speaking. And you look around, the place is empty.
Yeah, I know. It's
like-
weird, isn't it? It's like, who are they talking to?
Right.
And in the hearing rooms, it's almost as bad. Sometimes the hearing room will have probably a capacity of, let's say, 150 people, and there'll be 700 in there.
Yeah.
Other times you go in there, and there's 3 people in there. It's really an amazing situation.
Now, what did you do down?
Well, I'll give you a little background on me. I'm a New Hampshire resident, born. Lived here all my life, except for 4 years in the Navy, 68 to 72, and 9 years in Washington from 88 to 97.
As what?
As well, I was, after I got out of the Navy, I was going to go to college and be a history major. And the Navy said, no, you can't get out because we need you. You're a critical rating, so I missed the semester. Took a battery of tests, and I became a letter carrier right here in Manchester, New Hampshire. Carried mail for 10 years, went to school nights, get my degree, and then I started to go through the ladders of supervisory and managerial ladder.
Yeah.
And I became the first person in the 236-year history of the Postal Service to start as a letter carrier in Manchester, New Hampshire, and become the chief of staff for 3 postmaster generals.
Wow.
It was a wonderful opportunity, and I tell everybody, Washington is a beautiful place to visit, but you don't want to live there.
Yeah.
It's horrible. But during that period of time, we had some very, very serious issues facing us. The biggest was our violence in the workplace. We had approximately 40 people that were killed in
Thus,
the
the
workplace.
word "going postal" became part of the.
Became part of the comedian's vernacular for years.
Oh, yeah.
They thought it was quite funny. Well, they didn't have to sort through the human wreckage and the survivors that we did, and it was very, very sad.
Right.
But I had the privilege of working for Marvin Runyon, and he was an outstanding leader, a good postmaster general. And he dissected the problem, and we found out that our individuals had too many recourses of layers of grievance arbitration, then they go EEO and they do all of this. So someone who really should have been removed from the service for sexual harassment, bothering someone, fisticuffs, whatever it may have been, would go on for years and years and years, and then when they finally did get the letter that they were removed, they'd go off the rail.
Yeah.
And they'd go in and shoot people, harm people. And Runyon came up with the policy, and at the time, we had 785,000 union members. We had 5 different unions and 3 different associations. So as he used to say, if it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. So we had all of those unions. But we got them all together, and we said, we've got to stop this.
Yeah.
And the way he came about with it was zero tolerance. If somebody said, I'm going to knock your block off, the person was gone. and the unions were with us.
Yeah.
And they said, look, you can't say something foolish like that. You hold your temper. If you need to see your steward, you'll talk to your and it was amazing. It was lights off. Knock on wood, it stopped.
Right.
And it was because both the unions and management worked together to end this problem.
Now, how much of it was the person who said, I'll knock your block off, and how much of it was bullying in the workforce where somebody finally snaps?
It was a combination of all of the above, people needling each other, teasing each other, hollering and threatening and so on and so forth. And when we put a stop to that, and we could not have done it without the help of the unions, but they said, look, this is the bloodshed is going to stop. We've got, because we were starting to have spouses didn't want their husband to go or their wife to go to work because
Well, it depends on the relationship, probably.
Right, that's true. Yeah,
But it
Probably not all.
but in that case, it was serious business, and these folks were very, very adamant, and it stopped. And that was one of the high points of being down there. And another was when Runyon got there, there was a mindset to increase rates.
Do you have a website, by the way, or what are you doing to advertise yourself?
Yes, I do.
What's it called?
JimAdams.org.
Okay, JimAdams.org.
Right.
Okay, I just want to get that at the beginning and at the end so that
Thank you.
people. Okay, continue. Sorry, go ahead.
And we were raising rates every 2 years, and Runyon once again he had me dissect the structure of management versus employees. And during, and a lot of people don't realize this, but during the period of up till 1972, the Postal Service was the Post Office Department. The second most powerful member of the President's cabinet was the Postmaster General, and everybody would say, what? Because he was the best fundraiser in the country. Because every postmaster and every rural carrier was replaced when the administrations came in and out. Okay. So you can imagine, nobody knew what they were doing because they were out there pressing the flesh, and they were politicians.
Sure.
So we had a core of 40,000 assistant postmasters who actually ran the operation, regardless of what political individual was in there. They ran the place. Well, in 1972, Nixon said, we got to stop this, because they had strikes, they had all kinds of stuff. So it became the Postal Service, and you were then promoted by, and only by, you were given your promotions by merit and not by politics.
Whoa, that's crazy talk.
Exactly. But the 40,000 people who were there, as the upper level folks said, it's a training ground to give us more people. Well, Runyon said, you guys have been doing this for 20 years. I think the training ground is over.
Right.
So we reduced 40,000 managers like that.
Wow.
And the unions told him coming in, they said, hey, you got too many managers, you're top heavy. So then he did that and came back to the unions and said, now wait, guys, we got to go ECI -1. We cannot have a huge raise. And we didn't raise rates for 6 years. We saved you, the ratepayers, $14 billion. And we also retired a $13 billion debt, wow. $27 billion in that 9-year period. And we were sailing along quite well until 2006, when Congress decided they were going to help. kind of like Obamacare, they were going to help. So they decided, they passed a law called the Postal Accountability and Reform Act. And it was supposed to make the Postal Service even more businesslike and give them some of the abilities that FedEx and UPS had, which the biggest thing was they give volume discounts. The Postal Service could not. If you sent one package or 10,000, you paid the same. Right. So where's everybody going? They're going to the competition.
Sure.
But some knucklehead by the name of Waxman, a Democratic congressman from California.
Henry Waxman.
Old Henry said, you know, you people have got a lot of employees. You got 800,000 employees working. You're retirees. It's going to cost the taxpayers a ton of money to give these people to fund their health care. Right. And they said, because you people have money, you should do it. And the Postmaster General said, fine, we should fund our own retirees' health care, and we'll do that. And they said the bill was $50 billion. So we said, all right, the way you pay us, we should pay you $1 billion a year for 50 years. Waxman said, oh, no. We want $54 billion in 10 years. And it's not the usual paper chase in Washington. It was a check for $500 million every month.
Yeah.
It was. That's why they are in the condition they are today.
Okay, yeah.
Because everybody said, what? They just dropped off? No, it was Congress. Now Congress has decided, okay, we'll give you can give us $1 billion a year for 30 years, and they'll dig their way out of it. But the problem is Congress, and we got the same thing with health care. They can't leave anything alone.
Right.
They're going to fix what they perceive to be a minor problem. They destroy one of the best health care systems in the country. In the world. And now people are scratching their heads. What do I do? Where do I get my coverage? And those people who are able to get on the network and get the care, it's twice as expensive.
Wait.
Well, for some people.
Yeah. Some people, right.
Wait. You went to healthcare.gov.
Yes.
And it was like a month later. I don't think we've had a follow-up. Whatever did happen.
Yeah, well, eventually it worked out where I was able to get through to it. But the problem is in New Hampshire, I still can't get affordable health care. Because in New Hampshire, we only have
one system.
Right.
Blue Cross.
And it's actually more money now than it used to be. Because I had health insurance through them before, independent of an employer, and it was less. That was a few years ago. But now it's like that's my only option, and it's ridiculously expensive.
Wow.
Not good.
Yeah.
Not good.
Yeah.
So I want because I know that he had tried. Was that in December to start signing up for healthcare, and it was
I didn't get
going very well.
Didn't get very far on the
Didn't
first
work.
attempt, and then on the second attempt I got further. But
And the healthcare, from what I understand, when they finally figured out, some of the bugs worked out of people applying for healthcare, they still didn't have the bugs of how do people pay for it, or how does that system pay out to the doctors. They didn't have any of the financial part.
Right.
They just got to the point where they could actually sign up, and they have no real numbers as to how many people are actually functionally have health care now. They won't give you that.
That
information.
sounds very familiar. That was the same Congress that we worked with when I was down there for those 9 years. Everything was catch it later, just throw it against the wall, and then we'll make it work. And it's terrible. It is just terrible. And now of course, a lot of people say, well, the Executive Council has got nothing to do with that. But the Executive Council just put 50,000 more people on Medicaid, and that bill is going to come, probably it could be coming due in 2 or 3 years when the federal government says, we can't do this anymore. And the state of New Hampshire is going to be, the numbers vary, but it's a good sound number seems to be about $700 million that the taxpayers are going to have to come up with.
Because if you have 50,000 people on health care through this exchange, whatever it is, and the federal government says, I don't think we're going to fund it anymore, which is what they do.
They do that all the time.
Anybody who knows anything about the special ed funds and things like that, they never actually fund what they say they're going to fund.
Yeah.
And that's another thing people don't understand is that a Congress can't be held liable for what a previous Congress did. So just because the whatever number of Congress we have now in Washington, D.C., the next one is not obligated to do anything they said.
Right.
Because it's like a different entity. You're now making a deal with an entirely different, and it makes sense because you could have, like for instance, 2 years before this, you had a Democratic Congress, House, and Nancy Pelosi was the speaker. And now you got, Boehner as a speaker. Those are two different entities.
Oh, exactly.
And so because the Congress had said, you do this and we'll take care of it, it doesn't mean they're going to.
Right. And the bottom line is through all of this stuff, who gets holding the bag? The taxpayer.
Right.
And it's just not right.
No. I posted the other day, we're only paying 30 or 40%. That's like we're doing gambling today in the House. And people are already paying 30 to 40% of their income in taxes. This is just another source of it's like government's this heroin addict that just wants more and more heroin, and just because they pass the casino, and because they're going to get X number of millions of dollars, it doesn't mean they're going to spend it for schools. It doesn't mean they're going to spend it for whatever they want, and they'll still be coming back for more.
I've always believed that they don't have a spending issue. A revenue issue. They've got a spending issue. They cannot control spending. They believe, and it's kind of the liberal policy throughout the nation, everything for everybody without a clue how to pay for it.
Right.
And they have got the tipping point is right now. As I'm a conservative, and I believe in small government and low taxes, because the more you build a bureaucracy, you never can control it.
Right.
And in the state of New Hampshire, we're at that tipping point where we need to control that growth, and we need to take the time and do the right thing and keep let the hardworking men and women, the taxpayers of this state. Wouldn't it be wonderful if they could keep a little bit of that
Right.
extra money instead of finding other places to spend
Oh,
it?
you're one of them capitalists or something.
And
I
that's
hate
what
those people.
That's what I really feel badly for is when I've talked to a few people on the campaign trail. I talked to a woman the other day that works 2 jobs, and she says, "You know what really irks me?" She said, and then she lives in a duplex, and I will not give where she lives or anything else because some harm could come to her. She says, "But I'm so tired of the lady who's not supposed to have anybody with her." Her boyfriend coming out in the morning when I'm getting out, shoveling her car off to go to work, and calls her a sucker. He says, "Hey, we're making 50 grand sitting here watching The View, The Chew, because we got nothing else to do." And that poor lady is out there working 2 jobs to take care. She's a single mom with 2 kids. Now, hats off to that woman because she's proud. She's going to get out there and do the job. And I do, as a conservative, I also believe that people who are really in need, we give them a helping hand.
Oh, absolutely.
But unfortunately, the policies of these liberals is now, it's generational welfare.
Well, speaking of that, we had House Bill, Senate Bill 203 today, and that would have, if it had passed, would have basically put the nix on people using their EBT cards to buy alcohol, tobacco, and things like that, or porno, or lottery tickets.
I'm confused about that because I thought they couldn't do that already.
I don't know how it works, but I believe they can.
Yeah, they could do because
they can get cash. They get
Right.
two different types of EBT cards. One of them's for food, but theoretically they could buy other stuff with it.
Yeah.
But they also get a cash one if they're like get money through the state from ex-boyfriend or something like that, so giving them money.
Right.
So
support money.
Support
Right.
money, and so they can take that as cash, and then they go buy whatever they
Oh,
want.
and buy. Well, okay.
Right.
So yes, they can. And the thing is a friend of mine, Mike McCarthy, he's been on the show, was pointing out that the same people that think somebody that is so in dire straits that they need state help, they think that same person who is perfectly capable of buying tobacco and stuff like that, but yet the same people that voted against that bill are the same people don't want you smoking cigarettes anyway.
Right. You can't make it up. No. That is ridiculous. And I firmly believe, once again, it's something that really irritates me is those wonderful people down at the food pantry and the New Hampshire food folk, they just do an outstanding job.
Yeah.
And they tell us how many youngsters, how many children go to sleep hungry every night. With all of the millions and billions that we are spending on welfare, how can that be unless maybe it's not going to the right places? Maybe the children are getting nothing. We're getting 2 cases of beer instead. They shouldn't be allowed to do that.
No.
We live, and I don't mean to get on my soapbox, but we live in the greatest country in the world. There's not a face on this, but there's no place on the planet where people have more rights and more privileges and freedoms than we do. But with that comes responsibility. And these people who are not taking responsibilities for their families, that's a shame. Because the children and the folks who are really in need should not be left in the lurch so someone else can waste taxpayers' money.
Well, to me, and it's, is that the problem is who controls the money. The reason is if it's local, okay, if it's like, I live in the town of Ware, if somebody was in town and they needed money because they lost their job, their husband died, whatever it was, people in town would have no problems helping them out. In fact, they would feel, honored to help them out.
Right.
Okay? But when it's done by the federal government and it's under certain regulations. You have people that know the system. And we had a lady in here, was it like a year and a half ago, who wrote a book on that. She worked at the welfare office for X number of years. And she would see the same people that came into the office for welfare out there, you know, and like, you know, driving up on their Harley. And they're supposed to be disabled, driving up on their Harley and, you know, buying beer and stuff like that, because they get all the time in the world and they figured out a way to get money. And they some work part-time jobs under the table and things like that. And we're being scammed because there's no, when you go up to that federal government level, there is no accountability at all.
Exactly.
I'll give you an example. I have glaucoma. I knew that I was going to get, my eyesight was going to get bad enough so that I couldn't be a tool maker anymore. That's what I did for 34 years. I went to the welfare office, Social Security office in Concord. I forget which office.
Social Security.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And I went to him, I said, first they didn't want to talk to me. I don't know why. I just had some basic questions. I said, you know, I'm just trying to understand. I'm a state rep. You would think they'd be, you know.
Right.
They didn't care. So I said, is there a program that I can start a different trade or something where my eyes aren't as relevant? Because I can still drive.
Right.
And like you educate me into that and transition me and help me financially while I make the transition instead of becoming completely disabled first, in which case, you know, everybody hurts.
Right.
Nope. When you're completely disabled, you get a note from your doctor, we'll help you out. It's designed for dependency. It's designed to create dependency,
Sure
and that's it.
Exactly. And that's a huge issue because the working men and women of this state go out there every day and they really work hard, and they're tired of seeing people who they know can work just don't feel like working. Now that is a shame.
Yep.
And there's got to be some consequences for that. You've got to be able to say, look, you're not going to get all of this because in some places, and you can't get a real good number. I've contacted Health and Human Services a few times through other channels to try and find out what a family of 4 gets with a full boat from welfare. And that would be housing, and that would be the fuel assistance and food and all of the other issues. And they say, well, $16,000 and a year, and I'm hearing that the number is closer to $50,000 a year when you put it all together. Let's say that the rent is $2,000 a month. Well, there you go. You start adding that up. And then you started putting all of this other together, and that's with nothing from them. And the people who live next to them are out there they're writing a check. Well, we're going to have to hold this check for another day until it clears. And they're doing whatever they have to balance the books to keep their life and their family afloat. Mm-hmm. And they have people that are doing nothing. That's a shame.
It's not. And like I said, I think it all comes down to the same problem we're going to have as this healthcare debacle evolves. Is the same thing with welfare. It's a federally run program, and the federal government can't control it. And I think the cynical side of me says it's designed to create dependency. I'll give you an example. President Johnson asked. Now I'm going to forget his name. Who's the senator from New York? Really famous senator. He was Moynihan. Yes, Daniel Patrick Moynihan in the '60s to find out why the blacks in the inner city were having troubles. Moynihan is a diehard liberal, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they took all the census material and all this other stuff. From what I understand, it is the most exhaustive study they've ever done. They took a bunch of kids from Harvard and sat down and started crunching numbers. And Moynihan admitted that when he started, he believed that the problem with the blacks in the inner city, when they were all done crunching numbers, they would find out that the problem is poverty and racism. You know what the problem was? It had nothing to do with that. The problem with the kids in the inner city, why they were getting into trouble, was the lack of fathers in the home. Okay? It was a breakdown of the family. Mm-hmm. At that point, 25% of those kids were brought up in broken homes. Then they had the war on poverty, compounded by the no-fault divorce. By the early 2000s, In Washington, D.C., 75% of those kids are in broken or single-parent homes. That's the war on poverty. That's how effective it was. It destroyed entire cultures. And people still think the Democrats love the poor.
You can't make it up. And I think what really disturbs me is they say that they are voting for the working men and women. They're not.
No.
Every one of their policies flies in the face of that. It's give them more, and don't worry, somebody will just upgrade. We'll up the taxes.
Yeah.
I think though there's a tendency, and you know you don't know this about me, but I'm a centrist. I'm an independent. I'm neither a Democrat or a Republican because I end up in the middle on a lot of things. But I think I firmly agree the federal government spends too much money, and I really agree with a lot of what you guys are saying about, you know, and I love your idea that all this stuff should be localized and get the federal government out of it, and that's an area where I do tend to be a bit conservative myself. I think the federal government's ineffective and screws everything up and whatnot. I do think, however, on the other side, I think there's a tendency of conservatives to, it's almost like, this is how I perceive it, there's almost a perception that because some people game the system, as you've been suggesting, then that automatically means that pretty much everyone does.
Not at all. No.
I think what the point, and I'm glad you brought that up, because my point is, because the federal government's running the system, it's gameable.
Right. And
Okay?
I agree.
Right.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
if it's gameable, there will be people that take advantage of it all the time. And the people that actually need it won't even understand the red tape they have to go through to actually get help.
Right.
I mean, I've met a lot of people.
Right.
A kid that was living here in Manchester. He's married. He lost his job. His wife lost her job at the same time. They went down to the town hall and said, "I really need some help. I mean, I just lost my job. I'm trying to get another job immediately. I'm doing whatever I can. I just need some help so I can pay the rent." "Are you married?" "Yes." "Oh, well, if you were divorced, I think we could help."
Yeah. I've heard situations like that.
So the federal government's policy and the government's policy is to encourage the devolution of the family, which is why our prisons are full. You know, the dependency is either on the local level or it's in the state level in the prisons, and it's insane. And speaking of which district do you run in?
District 4, which
District
is Manchester.
4 is Manchester.
Manchester, Bedford, Londonderry, Auburn, Candia, and then we go across to Bedford, Goffstown, Hooksett, Bow, and it goes down, it follows 28 right down through Allenstown, Pembroke, Chichester, Epsom, Pittsfield, Loudon, and
See,
it's
that's why I'm never going to run for executive.
Yeah.
and then
He has to memorize that.
That's a
and
lot of
the-
geography to
And
remember.
I forgot, I haven't forgotten them, but I did mention that we also have Barrington, Lee, Northwood, Nottingham, and Deerfield. And all of these communities are, and what they do is that the folks every 10 years divide the state into 5 sections of approximately 245,000 to 250,000 voters.
Okay.
And that's how they district these, and that's why there's big change this last time.
Yeah, his district is actually considerably larger than a Senate district.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So anyway, you're the person, if you're successful, that you would replace Mr. Pappas. What's your title? It's Councilman Pappas, right?
Yes, it's Councilor. You know, and a lot of people call it the Governor's Council. It is not. It is the Executive Council.
Okay.
And in New Hampshire is the only state in the Union that has the Governor's Council. The Governor of New Hampshire is the least powerful governor in the United States. He or she cannot appoint anyone or let any contracts over $10,000 without the express consent of 3 of the 5 councilors. So they nominate and they bring contracts and other stuff forward, other issues forward, and then the council votes on it. And each councilor represents 250,000 people.
Okay.
And that's who their constituency is, not to sit there with the governor and one of these.
Interesting, yeah.
That's not it. No. I've got 250,000 hardworking people in my district, and I want to make sure I'm doing the best. For every tax dollar they give in, they're getting a full dollar's worth of value.
Now, one of the things you would do if you're elected is appoint people to specific judges, such as
No, we would not, we would confirm.
confirm. I'm sorry, confirm. Okay, so anyway, there's this guy named Bill Duncan, who is, they're thinking of appointing him to the Department of Ed Board.
Tomorrow, I will be with a lot of people, and we'll be up in downtown Concord to just let Governor Hassan know that is the most bizarre nomination you could not make one up any worse than this. Individual is suing the state of New Hampshire over a very small tax that the last legislature put forward to allow people to put money aside. It would be tax-free money it would affect their taxes. To set that for a business, to set it aside, so young, in fact, children who have maybe at the poverty level could go to a charter school or could go to a school because their parents said, we don't really like what's going on in this public school. We want the ability to go forward.
Right.
And this guy is very, very anti-charter school.
Really?
He doesn't care he wants everybody to be in the mainstream system because he believes completely in the Washington Down syndrome.
Right.
And as I mentioned before, I believe in the bottom up.
Yeah.
Who knows better than the people? The people of Manchester, the folks in Manchester know better what's good for their school system than any of these people in Washington.
Right.
I've been there, I've seen it, and it doesn't work.
Now, one of the things he's advocated is for Now, we had a few shows on Common Core.
Quite a few, yeah.
We had quite a few shows on Common Core. Marianne Banfield was on here, and they successfully tried to keep Common Core out of Manchester. So if they vote this guy in tomorrow, is it the vote tomorrow?
Yeah, the vote will be tomorrow.
The vote's tomorrow. He's going to advocate for more Common Core statewide instead of just...
Of course he is, and he's also going to... The school board will now be able to... There was a bit of a change, and they are saying, okay, this group, XYZ over here, wants to have a charter school, and they vote on it. Now you're putting a person on there that hates charter, does not like charters, and he's a Common Core guy. As I said, he's a Washington Down guy,
right.
And you're going to like it, and he's going to give it to you. If I were sitting in that seat, I would say, Governor, I don't know who recommended him, but it's a big mistake, and I'm voting against him.
Right, right.
But now tomorrow's going to be very interesting to see what Councilor Pappas does.
Yeah.
Because he votes with her 99% of the time. I would vote for what the people... Now, the people of Manchester, the biggest city in the state, have said no to Common Core. I would think they probably don't want...
Common Core.
Exactly.
Right.
And so a vote for this guy is for Common Core.
Exactly.
Because he's... Yeah. I mean, because that... When you really boil down what's going on in this country is a complete perversion of states' rights and local control. We've got the Common Core that's. Did you hear what? I didn't follow it well enough. Did you hear about that guy who got pulled out of a meeting, got arrested at a town meeting?
I've heard up in Guilford there was an issue, but I did not get the facts about it. But
I haven't got the facts, but
right.
Basically there was a book that they wanted these kids to read, and I tried to look up the pages of the book specifically so I could, before I talked about it, I would know really what was in it, or maybe because I wanted to read it for myself because I'm a pervert. But anyway,
good a reason as any.
That's all I got. But I couldn't locate that. I would have had to download the book, and I didn't want to. But according to the news article, it's basically a sexually explicit, aggressive or violent sexual encounter between kids, and it's in a high school book. And this guy stands up and says, "No, this isn't appropriate for my daughter. I don't want this," and he gets arrested for it.
Yeah, he demonstrated outside the meeting saying this isn't appropriate. You can't do this, and away he went.
Huh.
Yeah, that's local control, all right.
Mm-hmm.
As long as the police are. Oh, speaking of the police and control, did you guys? This is too funny. Okay, so a while ago, a guy had a vanity plate made called "Cops Lie," and the DMV caught it. And the DMV has a policy that they're not going to let you put offensive things on,
right.
on your vanity plate. So they said no. So he took him to court and won. Okay. Now my question is, how brain dead do you have to be to put a thing on your license plate that says "Cops Lie"?
Yeah, I see a lot of parking tickets and
Oh.
speeding tickets and all kinds of stuff in his future. And I'm
Well,
not
you know,
even psychic.
I've always, I believe that we're very fortunate. We've got men and women who are police officers, they're our EMS, our firefighters, because I was a volunteer firefighter, a certified volunteer firefighter for 17 years.
I was certified.
There you go. And
Not,
well,
not for that.
No, that's certifiable.
no, that's right.
certifiable.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
it was
okay.
very, it was one of the best things I ever did, and it was part of my when I came out of the military. I continued that, and it was. These people put their life on the line every day, and I know you will always get a rogue police officer
Oh, yeah.
or rogue firefighter, somebody who's doing something they shouldn't be.
Like in
But
any profession.
In any profession.
Yeah.
But I think that far more of those folks we're very fortunate to have them.
Oh yeah. Oh, I agree.
And you're right. I don't know what someone would be thinking. That's
That's just stupid. It was like my son when he was a teenager. I probably shouldn't admit this, but my son when he was a teenager, he wanted to buy this Bob Marley T-shirt, and he's like 14 or 15. I said, "You really want to buy that?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "So you really want to get strip searched everywhere you go?" I said, "Well, why?" He says, "Well, because Bob Marley is known for smoking the ganja." "Well, he has great music." I said, "Yeah, whatever. You really want to get strip searched
Right,
everywhere you go." And he was so, because he's, you know how idealistic they are when they're teenagers.
Oh, yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
I do.
Did he end up getting the shirt?
I don't remember. Probably get strip searched though. So, what's that else? Do you remember what else I was going to say? Common Core. Yeah. What's your feelings on Common Core? Basically, what?
Once again, if it's made in Washington, and if it's the whiz kid, charm all, do all, I really have to look hard at it. I believe, once again, let's let the local communities decide what they want to do.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah.
It's just anytime we have somebody who's telling us we know what's best, it's usually not. I go back to Obamacare. One size fits all usually fits none,
Right.
and it's just.
Well, it's illogical anyway. I mean, part of the problem with Obamacare and Common Core and any other federal program you can think of is that if Massachusetts did Romney Care, okay, if that works really well, New Hampshire can mimic it. Okay, they can say, "Oh, that's a great idea.
Right.
It worked well. They saved money," and then implement it in New Hampshire. Okay, or they can say, "They just went broke. All right, we're not doing that." But as soon as the federal government does it and it goes belly up, everybody's screwed.
Right.
Right. And,
You
and
know?
I firmly believe that all of the last 50 years, everything is Washington down.
Yep.
We need to start, because my career, I started as a letter carrier and worked my way up. And every postmaster general I worked for said, "I really appreciate your bottom-up view of this organization." Well, the people in Washington need to do that. Let's go to the people who better knows what sort of health care and type of coverage we need in this state than the people in the state.
Right.
We know what we need. I mean, we're not a metropolitan. The people in Manchester are very fortunate. They've got 2 large hospitals, just bing, 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 they're there. You get up into the North Country, you've got some real issues.
Right.
And that's the people who should decide what our health care is. And if a retired couple, they want catastrophic health care, or catastrophic care, and they want yearly checkups covered, and 2 or 3 other things, not a list of 20, then they should be able to buy that.
You mean they shouldn't have to buy reproductive health care?
There you go.
You're crazy.
Exactly. But that's what that is. It's because I'm
right.
I'm out of the box. It's just you can't do that to people. And I think we're going to see this time around. I think that the nation and the voters in the state of New Hampshire are tired of people telling them you have to do it this way.
Right.
Now, of course, we have to have laws and just to keep order. But something like that type of a law, when you look at Obamacare, it was the biggest tax ever imposed upon the United States taxpayer, and it's not good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why people aren't saying that more, because you're correct. It theoretically wasn't a tax until it went to the
Supreme Court.
Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court says this only is legal if it's a tax. So
Right.
they changed the
Right.
books a little bit to make it into a tax.
Under the
When the
Commerce
Democrats,
Clause,
the Democrats said no, it's not a tax all the way through. It's a, I don't know what the hell he said, but
I feel that this executive council run is it's my duty to do this because my wife and I have 6 children and 10 grandchildren. And when I look in those
you want to
beautiful...
buy a couple extra? I got a couple.
No, that's okay. When I look into their beautiful blue eyes, I have to say, what am I going to leave them for them? What is my legacy to them?
Yeah.
Oh, I was too busy. I couldn't get out there and try to make a difference. Because when I got out of the Navy and I went to work here before I went to college nights, the world was my oyster. I could do anything I wanted,
Right.
go anywhere. Now these young college kids have no place to go. And that's because of an economy that's going in 3 different directions at the same time.
Yeah.
And once again, the local people have got the answers. The people, as you mentioned, and it's a very good point, that they say conservatives that say everybody that's on welfare is a deadbeat. That is the worst possible thing anyone could say, and it's furthest from the truth in my mind. I think we've got to get way out of the box. Why don't we retrain these folks? Because if
I agree.
if
Yeah.
they were a heavy equipment operator in a certain type of equipment, and that is not being done around here anymore, we're not, the construction is still, it's pretty slow. Let's give this fellow, and he's looked for a job for 5 years.
Yeah.
He's not going to find one. So let's retrain it, because most of these people are very smart.
Right.
And instead of spending these millions and millions of dollars on handouts, let's get these folks to work, because there's many, many things that need to be done.
Yeah.
You know what we don't do in this, or don't seem to do, I suppose, in this century that we did in the last few, is right now, is it North Dakota that's booming, right?
Oh yeah,
Right.
they have like 2% unemployment. It's
Right.
the lowest in the country. Yeah.
I don't understand why more people who, like you say, like large equipment operators, aren't just packing up and moving.
Right.
Because that's what they used to do.
There was a bill in Congress. I don't know if I don't think it went anywhere. Which it was interesting because it was sponsored by a liberal and a Tea Party guy, who teamed up on this bill to use, instead of paying people all this money for unemployment, give them kind of an advance on unemployment insurance money to relocate them to places like North Dakota where the jobs are. I don't think it went anywhere though.
It's actually a cool idea.
I thought it was a phenomenal idea, which is probably why it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Create a good market for jobs, and they will come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
In New Hampshire, I've always felt, we have got the best of everything. When I was in the Navy, I was just the luck of the draw. In the Navy, I was with a bunch of kids from the Midwest. And when I used to tell them that I was an hour from Boston, an hour from the mountains, and an hour from the ocean, some of these kids, the ocean, I mean, there was a 4-day drive back
Yeah.
then for those kids to get
Yeah.
to the ocean. And they just could not believe. They said, "Where is this beautiful place?" I said, "It's called New Hampshire."
Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm running, because I think that there's so many things that need to be changed, and there are so many things that just need to be kind of watched and shepherded.
Yeah.
Because we've got a lot of bright people. You got 435 representatives, 24 senators, and 5 executive councilors who all need to be focused on, let's get people back to work.
Right.
Because even though our unemployment is down, it's down dramatically enough that it's costing a lot of money. We need to get them, and most of those folks, I'm hoping, want to go to work.
Right.
Yeah.
And so let's get them those jobs, and then let's make government smaller so it's not in their life
Yeah.
and constantly telling them what they can do, what they can't do, and let's just kind of see if we can make things more pleasant for people.
Right.
I don't know if this falls under executive council purview, but I know that I talked to a friend of mine from Manchester just the other day, and he was saying that trying to get some of these contracts, and maybe he was just talking about Manchester specifically, or maybe it's a state, is there is so many hurdles you have to go through to even bid on them that it's really, really difficult.
Well, those are that is the I guess we'll call it the initial level. That's the initial level of the contract before it ever gets to the council. The council, when it comes to the council, the folks have gone through the due process, and they have selected Joe Jones and Bob Jones Company, and they are the ones that the governor is bringing forward. But we need to make it so it's transparent. That's what I want, is transparent. So there's no way to make it so people can say, well, you know, isn't it funny that all the big jobs are being done by this company?
Joe Jones and, yeah.
Exactly. Why is that? Those need to be, and that would be, even though that is not within the purview of the executive council, those things, if it's transparent and it's, everybody can.
It's not something, yeah, but once you get in, it's not something you can't look into. And
Exactly.
Start trying to find out.
Exactly.
And maybe it's legislation that needs to be changed. Because this guy is a hard-working guy. I've known him for a long time. He's and he just can't get anywhere on that stuff because it's just, you know, you need this permit and that permit.
Well, and
you
it's
gotta talk to
paper.
this guy
and
and kiss this
it's
guy's
a papers.
butt. And,
It's a papers chase because I have I remember one of my favorite pictures of Ray Wazorek. He was sitting in his, and the pile of paper was this high. You could barely see him. And that's every meeting. That's every 2 weeks. And so they have to go through this stuff. But he was very, very sharp because I remember in 2010.
now, he endorsed you, right?
Yes, he is.
Okay, so-
he's the co-chair of my steering committee.
Okay.
And he's been very, very helpful. And because of my background, when I was chief of staff for the 3 postmaster generals, the postmaster general was the person that they say, okay, you're in charge, you go do this. But the postmaster general was just like the governor of New Hampshire, because the president appoints 9 governors, and they are confirmed by the United States Senate. The 9 governors oversee and run the Postal Service, and the Postmaster General has to get their permission to make radical changes, do anything. And someone said, gee, that sounds like the New Hampshire Executive Council. It's a mirror picture. It's a mirror image of it. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
And many times, you know, the difference is the Postmaster General had to count to 5, and the governor needs to count to 3.
Yeah.
So that's where it, and I just believe, and you hit the nail on the head, tomorrow's confirmation hearing for this fellow who is, and I guess it was in the all of the paper, the union leader, Charlie Arlinghouse, had a wonderful piece. He said no one should ever be nominated for a position like that who is in the process of suing the state of New Hampshire.
Right.
Period. I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
and it's just, it's beyond, as I said, you can't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Maggie Hassan is super liberal, and that's really what it's all about. I mean, I'm sure this is somebody that's, you know, pretty high up on the food chain as far as, you know, connected with the, I don't know, Obama administration, but, you know, the whole education system that
Right.
believes that the federal government really should be able to tell us what to do and when to do it and what porno books our kids can read.
Well, when you got someone like Bill Ayers, who was trying to blow up buildings, I was in Vietnam at the same time he was here. He was a terrorist.
Right.
Period. And he is the best friend of the man who's sitting in the White House. And he is now in some level, I don't know exactly what his level is, but he's one of the people that are looking at the school books that are, this is what we ought to have in education. We ought to take this piece out and put, and I don't know exactly what level of impact he has, involvement he's got, but that makes my skin hurt. That's unbelievable.
Yes, yeah,
I haven't heard his
especially
name lately, but
yeah,
that's
but
interesting.
yeah, especially somebody who's, you know, like who's been over in Vietnam.
He was a terrorist.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, we came home and they threw rocks and bottles at us.
I know.
And you know, it was a different time. And fortunately, the American people now, they support the warrior. They might not like the war, but they support the warrior. Well, back then, they didn't take very good care of us, but
Right.
it's come around, and I am so proud of how these veterans today
That's-
are being treated. And I'm a member of the New Hampshire State Veterans Council, so that's very important to me.
Well, no, I don't know that that's necessarily true. I mean, you heard the report just the other day, and it's actually, I think it's at least a week
no,
old.
we're not talking about the VA. I said the people.
Okay, yeah, the
There's
people.
two different entities,
Right,
exactly.
right. But the government,
Well,
another
that's right.
federal program, treating the to make it look like.
Oh, I know what you're talking about now.
shoot, I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
realize it was that late.
we're out of time,
Oh,
which is too
yeah.
bad because that's an important topic. But
It is. We have all kinds of important topics. Okay, so jimadams.org. You can go to jimadams.org and sign on to help him out to become the next executive councilman from
District 4.
District 4. Jim, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for
Yeah,
having me.
Thanks for coming on, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank
See you
very
next
much.
week.
Thank you.